You're watching M&M Midday. Up to the minute, breaking news from around the world. Good afternoon and welcome to M&M Midday. Our top story, protests in Russian streets. Police rounded up more than 1,400 protesters on Wednesday as Russians in dozens of cities took part in rallies organized by allies of hunger-striking Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny over his failing health in jail. His spokeswoman was jailed for 10 days and another close ally detained on the same day that President Vladimir Putin delivered a State of the Union Nations address warning the West not to cross Russia's red lines and pointedly made no mention of Navalny. This is one of the last gasps of free Russia, as many are saying. We came out for Alexei against the war in Ukraine and the wild propaganda, said Marina, a student at the Moscow protests. Now, OVD Info, a group that monitors protests and detentions, said 1,496 people have been arrested, including 662 in St. Petersburg and 95 in Euro city of Ufa. Protests in central Moscow chanted, "Freedom to Navalny," and "Let the doctors in." Now, Navalny's wife, Yulia, joined the rally in the capital, where demonstrators chanted her name. The opposition had hoped the rallies would be the biggest in modern Russian history, and presented them as an attempt to save Navalny's life by persuading the authorities to allow his own doctors to treat him. But turnout looked smaller than during the protests earlier this year, before Navalny was jailed for 2.5 years for parole violations related to what he said were politically motivated charges of embezzlement. Now, police said 6,000 people protested illegally in Moscow, while Navalny's YouTube channel said the turnout in the capital was up to 10 times higher. Next up, car bombing at a hotel in southwest Pakistan kills 4, wounds 11. A car bomb blast late on Wednesday ripped through a luxury hotel's parking area in the southwestern Pakistan city of Quetta, killing 4 people and wounding 11. China's ambassador to Pakistan was staying at that hotel, but was not there when the bomb exploded. The provincial home minister said the envoy was fine. An official at a local civil hospital in Wasim Bagh said 4 people had died and several others are in critical condition. A car that was full of explosives exploded in that hotel. Now, Ahmed told local ARA News TV. The Pakistani Taliban claimed responsibility for the bombing. They said it was a suicide attack in which our suicide bomber used his explosive-filled car in the hotel. Now, spokesman for the militant group Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and Chinese Ambassador Nang Rong had earlier in the day met Provincial Chief Minister Jam Kamal in the city. Now, according to a tweet from the provincial government spokesman for that day. Turning stateside in the USA, a plant that was making Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine must fix a long list of problems, including peeling paint, shoddy cleanups, and poorly trained staff to resume operations, according to a highly critical report by the Food and Drug Administration. The experts said addressing the issues raised in the scathing FDA inspection report could take months. Now, neither Johnson & Johnson nor the FDA has said when they expect vaccine production to resume at the Baltimore plant owned by Emergent Biosolutions Incorporated. Now, only one plant in the Netherlands is currently producing the key drug substance used in Johnson & Johnson's vaccine, the company said. It may take many months to make these changes, said a global healthcare supply expert at the Center for Global Development. Now, he describes some of the issues raised by the FDA as quite significant. Johnson & Johnson said it would ensure that all the FDA issues are addressed and promptly and comprehensively. Now, the 12-page report described dirty facilities and many instances of potential contamination. Now, they said in some cases, employees carrying unsealed medical waste collided with containers used to make material for vaccinations. Now, it noted adding the containers had been spotted elsewhere with cracks. Problems were not investigated, and they said cleanups were superficial, it added. Now, in one example, a worker moved between rooms where different materials were made on 19 different days while only documenting a single required shower. FDA inspectors said the facility was not large enough. describing crowded rooms difficult to walk through without bumping into counters and containers of materials and small doors that force workers to push containers on the ground rather than use machines to carry them. Ukraine on Wednesday urged Western allies to show they were prepared to punish Moscow with new sanctions, including kicking Russia out of the global SWIFT payment system to deter the Kremlin from resorting to more military force against Ukraine. In an interview with Reuters, Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said while Kiev had no new information indicating that Russia had decided to take new military action against Ukraine, it was now important for the West to act now to prevent that from happening. Now, Ukraine is trying to shore up international support in its standoff with Moscow over a buildup of Russian troops on its eastern border and in Crimea. Now, I have no information to state that the decision to launch a military operation against Ukraine has already been taken, so it can go in either direction now, Kuleba said. And this is why reaction of the West, the consolidated reaction of the West, is so important now to prevent Putin, he said, from making that decision. Now, Kiev and Moscow have traded blame for the collapse in the ceasefire, as you know it, in eastern Donbass region, where Ukrainian troops have battled Russian-backed forces in a conflict over Kiev, and says that has killed 14,000 people since 2014. This battle has gone on, ladies and gentlemen, for quite some time. Now, Kuleba said he asked Washington to supply powerful means of electronic warfare to counter Russia's capacity to jam Ukrainian communication when he met U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken last week. Next up, Pope Francis promised Lebanon's Prime Minister-designate Saeed al-Hariri on Thursday that he would visit the country, but only after political forces put aside differences for the good people. Now, the Vatican said Hariri, who also met the Italian leaders during a short visit, held talks with the people for about 30 minutes. Now, Hariri told Lebanon's television afterwards that the Pope would visit, but only once its factious political parties were able to agree on a new government and a ceasefire. And finally this hour, taking a knee during the Tokyo Olympics or lifting a fist in support of racial equality will be punished, as the International Committee on Wednesday maintained its ban on athletes' protests inside stadiums, at ceremonies, and on podiums. The IOC's Rule 50 forbids any kind of demonstration of political, religious, or racial propaganda in venues of any other Olympic area, and the Games body, including the rules, should be maintained following an athlete consultation. Now, against the backdrop of the Black Lives Matter movement, protests, racial injustice calls have increased in recent months for a change to that rule that would allow athletes to protest. Now, some international federation chiefs, including World Athletic President, said the athletes should have the right to make gestures of political protest during the games. And that's the news up to the minute. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you again tomorrow.